Won't you listen to reason? Will you open your eyes? It's a wonder what you'll find with an open mind. You may be surprised. Yeah, gotta get away from this illusion for the sake of the world. This delusion, it's gotta go. Yeah.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Atheist Experience Live. I'm Matt Dillahunty, joined this week David Smalley. Welcome.
Hello, thank you,
We'll
sir.
tell you a little bit more about David, and we'll get into the show here in just a couple minutes, but I got the regular announcements to get out of the way. It's Sunday, March 18th, 2012. This is a live public access television program out of Austin, Texas. And I have no idea how this studio got so full today because everybody said they weren't here for South by Southwest, and they're not here to audition for America's Got Talent, so who knows what's going on. But we're happy everybody showed up in the studio today, and for all those of you who are watching live, and the recorded episode as well. This is a live television program that is a call-in program. We'll have the number up at the bottom of the screen shortly so you can call in. We're sponsored by the Atheist Community of Austin, a nonprofit educational organization promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. The ACA has weekly meetings every Sunday at, I think we're going to Schlotsky's. No, we've changed it. Check the website. That's the best thing to do. Cafe Express, there it is. It's at the bottom of the screen. Sundays, 11 o'clock, Cafe Express. The address is there. And that's good information about the website as well. You can go to www.atheist-community.org, and that has a frequently asked questions page, a calendar of events, telling you everything that's going on. There's a lot of stuff going on. It's not just the TV show, the dinner after the show, which is at El Arroyo. Any atheist or atheist-friendly person is welcome to come to those events. You don't have to be a member to attend. There are some events, though, that are primarily for members and friends of members, like Craft Night. We started this past Friday. So if you knit, you crochet, you paint, scrapbook, I don't know. Pick some other crafty thing. If you do it and want to hang out with a bunch of other godless heathens who enjoy crafty stuff, we've started a craft night for those who are interested. There's also happy hour every Thursday at 7 o'clock at the Dog and Duck Pub at 17th and Guadalupe. We have our lecture series the first Sunday of the month instead of our regular meetup. And in addition to this program, which is live on public access TV and streaming over Ustream and probably posted to YouTube in bunches of little clips to annoy theists in your neighborhood. We also have the Nonprofits, a weekly kind of podcast that we do. Unfortunately, there was no Nonprofits episode yesterday. There's a lot going on with people moving, but we're hoping to be live again next week. And Godless Bitches is recording again this Wednesday for yet another episode. And so you can find out more information at the website about those. Anybody who doesn't get through on the phone today or doesn't want to get through, you can email tv@atheist-community.org, and that goes to myself, the co-host, some of the people behind the scenes, and we'll see if we can't even get David Smalley included in any emails that you might want to send him. David's a former editor of American Atheist magazine, the host of the Dogma Debate podcast, and you've also written a book called Baptized Atheist. So welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
What do you want to talk about? I'm going to shut up and you just take the whole show from here.
That'd be fantastic. Could you slide out of frame a little? That'd be great. No.
Can we just put the camera right on it? David and I met a couple years ago here in Austin at a rally at the state capitol where American Atheist was involved. Ed Buckner was down,
right.
And you read a little speech about the importance of education and protecting, our school books and things like that. That's where I was first introduced to David, and we've talked off and on over the course of a couple of years about maybe getting you down to do the show, but it wasn't ever in the cards until today. So welcome.
Thank you.
And I figure you can tell us a little bit about the podcast.
Sure. Yeah, it's actually a live internet radio show called the Dogma Debate, and it's also an iTunes podcast. So immediately after the show, you can go to iTunes and get the podcast. So we take live callers, but it's all. I have a face for radio, so I typically don't do television. So yeah, dogmadebate.com is where you can find out. It's a blog, live radio show, and of course the podcast. So
And David's, of course, keeping up the tradition that atheists have to be bald with goatees, at least to be on this show. So what was the website again so that people can get over?
dogmadebate.com.
Cool. And your book was actually published through American Atheist Press, right?
Yep, American Atheist Press, October 2010. If you go to dogmadebate.com, you can see some information about the book as well. It's called Baptized Atheist.
Awesome. We got a handful of upcoming events that I have to talk about real quick. Obviously, the Reason Rally is coming up March 24th in Washington, D.C. And for those of you who are curious, Martin Wagner from the show is going to be at the debate, or at the rally, and you can follow where he's going to be and what's going on at the Atheist Experience blog, which is freethoughtblogs.com/AXP. And on April 14th, I'll be in Frisco, Texas. Yeah, well, the one woo, that's it.
Yeah.
Some of those guys came down today. North Texas Secular Student Convention is happening April 14th at Collin College in Frisco, Texas. We'll have Damon Fowler, David Fitzgerald, Hemant Mehta, Dorian Mooneyham, Sam Singleton, and J.T. Everhart and I will be doing a joint debate about the existence of God. So that's April 14th. April 21st, I'll be in Binghamton, New York for another debate on the existence of God. And April 28th, I'm in Madison, Wisconsin for what I think is being called Atheist Fest, which just was so happy I had to say, yeah, I'll do that. And then in May, the Imagine No Religion 2 conference is coming up in Kamloops, British Columbia. I'll be there both to speak and to do a joint debate on, let's see, what was it? Oh yeah, the existence of God with Chris DiCarlo. So we'll get more information. I'll have that posted on the Facebook page and try to get a blog post up as well, so you can keep tabs on what's going on and figure out whether or not one of us from the show will be in your area. So you want to go ahead and start taking callers?
Let's take callers.
All right. We've got, is it Johannan in Thiensville, Wisconsin, or Thiensville, Wisconsin?
Hi. Yeah, Thiensville.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, so I'm actually a theist, and I had a rather unusual argument. Someone suggested I call in and test this out on you, and I want to see what you think.
Okay.
So you would agree that we can, at some point, I mean, this is not going to fit into the normal kind of theism where people think there's like an immaterial soul, which is non-physical or anything like that. However, you would agree that we can develop artificial intelligence at some point in the future, right? Not too far off, that would.
I have no idea. I don't know. I don't think we know exactly what's required to have something that would qualify as.
Not at the moment. Not
Sure.
at the moment, but I'm saying, like, that's the kind of the traditional view among neuroscientists. That basically it boils down to a kind of computation, right?
Sure. Yeah, I recognize that there's a lot of people working on this. This may be possible. I don't know that we can say when. I'm not even sure we can say
Yeah,
if.
when, but like that, it's plausible to say 50 years from now, whenever, that someone will figure this out, right?
Sure.
Okay, so now that being the case, you ever play the Sims game?
Yes. Well, I don't.
Okay.
I'm familiar with it.
Okay, so let's suppose that this is that's something that we do all the time anyway. Lots of people have Sims games. And suppose that, say, 50 years from now, there's a future version of The Sims called Sims Universe. And in this simulation, because we have quantum computers by this point, everything is completely...
Because sure, as long as we're making stuff up.
Okay, so now the thing is that suppose we have these AIs inside this game, which is, it's just something perfectly reasonable to do as well. These AIs would believe that they are actually real people living in the real world, right?
I don't know.
Because they would have self-aware.
But I'll go along with your
hypothesis. Would have the same, pixelation that ours would. They would look, for all intents and purposes, real, and so they would have no way to directly tell if they're in a simulation, right?
Possibly. I don't know. I mean, you can if you're going to construct this scenario and we use it as a hypothetical, sure, we'll go ahead and say that hypothetically speaking, it's possible that. Can I just skip right to the punch and say that we're living in a computer simulation?
Yeah, I'm gonna give you some more things on this. There's a guy named Nick Bostrom. You might have heard of him.
Yeah.
He had this idea, and he basically was able to. He actually had an equation to calculate the probability that we're in a simulation. And
Yeah.
It's just kind of crazy because this leads to a really kind of crazy conclusion. The premise he's going in aren't that they're difficult, though, right? They're seemingly pretty reasonable, but the end result of it was that we're like 99% likely to be in some kind of simulation, right?
Yes, I'm aware that that's what he thinks.
Okay, so now that being the case, you could have well, first of all, this would look a lot like a atheist type of scenario, right, where you have like instead of a quote guy, would be an all-powerful programmer, right? And suppose that this programmer interacted with our world in such a way that, say there was a interaction between the simulant and the simulator, right?
Possibly.
If you didn't think that you were in a simulation, you thought you were in the real world, what would that look like?
Why? If I didn't think I was in a simulation and I thought I was in
some crazy,
then it would look like I was. It would be indistinguishable. I wouldn't be able to tell whether I was in a simulation, would I?
What if hypothetically the simulator decided to have fun and play a practical joke on his Sims, and he spawned something in the game, or that look totally freakish, right?
Sure.
Okay, so now the idea is that this could basically it would look indistinguishable from what you think of as religion, right?
I don't know. I mean, you keep wanting to set up this scenario so that it's more and more reliant on hypotheticals such that things are indistinguishable, and I don't know that that's actually the fact. But if I accept your hypothetical, yes.
Well, okay, so I'm gonna try and kind of ground up the idea that it's just a hypothetical here. I'm gonna try and
can you ground it up quickly?
Make it stronger, yeah. Okay, so our world is already, you know that our world is already a quantum computer, naturally at least, right?
No.
It's in quantum information theory. It's basically they're able to reduce quantum theory to something called quantum information theory, and it functions as a quantum computer. So now whether or not we're in a simulation, that would at least entail that we could replicate, because it's already computable, right? You can if it's computable, it means you can replicate the exact environment via computation.
I don't know that that's actually true.
It is. I have a background in physics.
Wow. Hey, hang on. I've got a quantum physicist in the back of the room. Mark, is that true? He doesn't know either.
That's Lloyd and it's from Vic.
He doesn't know either. So I mean, but we'll just keep saying yes to your hypothetical until you get to the point.
Okay, so the idea is that there's actually, I'm going to kind of expand on this a little bit here.
I hope you expand quickly.
Okay, sorry. I'm a little bit nervous on the phone here. I'm going off and call in. So.
Well, I'm actually looking for an actual argument. I'm not all that keen on sci-fi, hypotheticals, whether or not they may actually be true. I'm looking for somebody to actually construct an argument.
Okay, so here we go. So we have the simulation hypothesis, and based on Boston's formula, it's very highly likely. There's extremely highly probable chance that we're in a simulation rather than not, simply because there will be so many more simulations than real worlds, and the chances of us just happening to be in the real one are very tiny, right?
Keep going.
Okay, so now we're going to expand on this a little bit, and this already sounds like science fiction, right? I mean, I get that, but I'm going to expand on this a little bit, and I'm going to ask how many. Let's say we have the first quantum computer develops in 2040, and it runs 4 or 5 simulations. Then 10 years down the road, quantum computers are available to the public, and now they release Sims Universe, and all of a sudden there are 10 million simulations, right?
Okay.
We just keep extrapolating farther out to you've heard of Kurzweil's evolution thing, where it goes out and eventually you can build Matryoshka brains and so on and so forth.
Yep.
And the point, now this is kind of a counterintuitive conclusion here, though, is that since as technology expands, the number of simulations will also expand because the civilization is increasing. More people are able to develop simulations.
You're losing me.
Okay, so the argument is that the most likely point at which we are being simulated is actually not in the near future, but the rather distant future, right?
Sure.
Okay, you've heard of Frank Tipler?
The name sounds familiar.
He's a physicist. Now this is.
Are we getting to anything approaching a God argument in the near future?
Yeah. Well, basically the idea is that we're being.
The show's only an hour long.
Omega point, which has all the properties of deity.
Okay.
Just because it's so you tap into the spin foam behind space-time, and you can use all of space-time for quantum computing, and you have this one giant AI running the whole thing from the future, basically. And it's running all these trillions of simulations, but it has all the properties that you would think of as having a God.
Okay.
And so that's the idea, is that scenario is highly more likely than the situation that it is not true. and therefore it is highly likely that a god or godlike being exists rather than not.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
No.
Yes and no. I don't really care about modal logic arguments. I don't really care if you can say that something is possible or probable or putting together these pieces. What I want to know is there any actual evidence? By the way, you better let me finish after me letting you ramble so long. In all those scenarios, wouldn't you agree that there has to be one first civilization that isn't a simulation?
That is correct. And I thought you were going to ask that.
So
I have
can you prove that we're not that civilization?
All right.
Yes or no?
Here. Prove that we're not that one? All right, here it goes.
Can you?
So that's future point. This take a little bit to set this up, okay?
No.
Future point, because I thought you were going to ask this question. So this is future point, this hypothetical civilization in the future, right?
You've got 2 minutes tops. Go ahead.
All right. So what's going on here is that once it's able to encompass all space-time and quantum computing, it's now defined by the wave function of the universe, which is actually, according to the Wheeler-DeWitt equation, is time-independent, meaning it's essentially outside of time, and therefore exists for all time.
How can something exist outside of time?
It's simple. The way it's already
simple?
mathematically defined to.
No, you just said it's simple for something to exist outside of time, and I don't agree that that's simple. I don't even see how that's
mathematically.
Boy, would you let me finish?
Okay.
I don't even see how that's a coherent sentence, because existence is a temporal condition. You're using an existence to mean something that it can't.
Okay, define existence then. Because I'm thinking in terms of the math here. It's just defined by the mathematics as being...
Yeah, and I don't care. I think you can do all kinds of really nifty little things with mathematics that seem really interesting and actually lead places. And you can also do some things that are productive in the real world. But I don't want to sit around and do this kind of masturbatory fantasy stuff with mathematics. When you start talking about something... I don't care.
Okay.
When you say something can exist outside of time, that doesn't make any sense, and you need to define what you actually mean. And if all you're going to do is just keep citing physicists or quantum mechanics over and over again, we're not getting anywhere near any sort of understanding or agreement. And I don't know how any of that demonstrates that a God exists.
Okay, well, I was just giving you the demonstration that there's the quantum computer. Once this omega point computer begins to exist, it has to always exist for all of time, simply because it's time independent. So basically what they did is they had this wave function of the universe equation, and there's this Wheeler and DeWitt were trying to put this together, John Wheeler and Bryce DeWitt.
That's the point.
And when they did the math, the time dependency part of the equation fell out.
I tell you what. Hey, Johanna, you've gone way over your 2 minutes. When you get your Nobel Prize or your Templeton Prize for this, call back.
Okay, it's Frank Kipler's argument, so.
Thanks.
Bye.
Sorry, for those of you whose eyes were glazing over.
That was me.
Yeah.
That's one of those.
I tried.
Is the point maybe that really in the future we could have artificial intelligence so intelligent that it thinks it evolved when in fact it was created in some sort of simulation, and that could be us? I'm trying to help the guy out. I kind of feel bad for him.
So the first thing that happens is they make a bunch of assumptions about what's possible with regard to creating artificial intelligence. And then they expand on those assumptions with regard to quantum computers and things like that. And then they add time into the equation, which means that we're in a simulation which is necessarily created in the future, which makes it timeless and time independent. And therefore, it's most likely that we are living in a simulation. And therefore, if something's external to the simulation, it has all the characteristics that we would normally assign to a deity, and therefore God exists. Are you convinced?
Absolutely not. And also, if we actually created that artificial intelligence...
No, we didn't.
And it was... No, I'm saying in the future.
Oh.
It has to do with computers you're not aware of yet.
Oh.
Once we have those computers created, and we create that artificial intelligence, and it challenges us, you didn't create me, I evolved, we can show them. Yes, we did, and here's how we can create more.
Well, I think, yeah.
Because then you get into testing. Yeah, I'm saying
it
all comes down to being able to test and challenge like in everything else in science. And
But I didn't invite David down to be bored to tears by science fiction and people who are just all fascinated with quantum possibilities. So we'll go to Ed in Buenos Aires. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
Good. Thanks for waiting.
No problem. I'm a long-time listener of the show, and I just wanted to bring up something about the argument of, from evil that usually comes up in the show. And
Does it?
to add another layer of argument towards it, that's basically the existence of conservation of energy inside the universe. And basically my point is that there doesn't necessarily have to be conservation of energy. If you've ever played like a video game, you can see there's physics and stuff, but at some point energy conservation ceases to exist.
Is there
Like-
some video going around the internet that is all about video games and simulations that just...
No. I'm not trying to make the same argument as the guy before, please.
Well, I mean,
I'm just trying
please.
to...
The first thing
Yeah.
is the first thing is that you called up to address the problem of evil, which you said comes up on the show all the time, and I'm here all the time, and I really don't know that it comes up that often because I don't really find the problem of evil that compelling, and I tend not to use it. But I don't know what the hell the problem of evil has to do with the conservation of energy.
Well, basically that whether you brand something evil or not doesn't really matter towards the argument, because the fact that you have to take energy from something else in order to have it for yourself basically inherently makes the universe a very competitive and evil place, if you know what I mean. Like,
No.
it doesn't... It's just... Okay. You could potentially...
I don't see
have
that it's evil.
or no, I'm not well, not specifically evil, maybe, but
Hey, do you
the
know
universe is
what the
Yeah.
problem of evil is? I mean, as an argument against the existence of God?
oh yeah,
What?
I mean the basically the point that if there is evil, then God is either unwilling or unable to stop it.
Sure.
Basically.
And
Okay.
And so how did you get to conservation of energy? I'm not trying to be an ass
Okay.
here. I'm just really lost.
No, I understand. Okay, because I've heard many times from theists basically arguing that evil is necessary, or that what we think is actually evil isn't, and it's just like a test or a necessary thing, and whatever. My point is that basically we could potentially have a universe where your health isn't dependent upon basically taking health from something else.
Yes.
Just okay, and the fact that we do live in a universe where that's the case, even if it couldn't be, if it could not be, means that God, if He exists, specifically designed the universe.
Yes.
So that in order to that you have to basically kill something to eat it.
Yes.
Or okay.
I'm with
And
you.
that-
I've heard this before. I don't think we need to go anywhere near conservation of energy. I think what you're doing is you're providing yet another example of the problem of evil, that we live in a universe where you must necessarily kill things for your own sustenance, whether even plants, although I don't really necessarily consider it evil, but given the option of creating some other universe where you didn't have to consume other things, that would mean that a creator God, assuming they had choices, picked a universe in which you had to subsist by killing other things.
Yeah, basically.
Sure.
Okay. No, whatever. I never heard this argument in particular come up in the show, and I just wanted to bring it up because I've never heard it. But that's it.
I don't bring it up because I don't really, not a big fan of the problem of evil. I don't know that it actually accomplishes anything. I'm more concerned with whether or not a God exists, not whether or not he's evil. I fully accept that if a God exists, he's almost certainly evil because of that, or at least indifferent. But it doesn't do anything. It doesn't do anything to demonstrate whether or not a God actually exists. So it's one that doesn't actually come up here very often. But yeah, I'm at least familiar with that angle on it.
Okay, that's it. That's just all I wanted to say, basically.
Okay. Well, thanks, Ed.
Okay. Okay, bye.
Bye-bye. So as a reminder, after the show's over, we get together for dinner at El Arroyo, and we'll have the address up at the bottom of the screen. Any atheist or atheist-friendly person is welcome to come down and join us. You can eat dinner with David, who hopefully have your eyes cleared now from the quantum infusion of the show.
I'm getting there. I'm
Cool.
getting there.
Because we got more calls, so let's go ahead and move on to Trevor in Waikiki.
Aloha. How are you doing today, Matt and David?
Aloha.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. I wanted to discuss two quick things, and they don't have anything to do with quantum mechanics. So
The audience
Applause
is
in the
clapping.
audience.
the first thing is that a few years ago I discovered the term atheist, and I don't know if that's been discussed on the show before.
You mean
it's a
apatheist?
portmanteau of apathy and theism or atheism.
Sure.
And I used to be consider myself agnostic, but I was always ambivalent about it in that it's easy to say I don't know, but it's also profoundly difficult to say I don't know. And atheist is a nice cop-out because nothing in my life has ever been explained by anything other than the rational physical universe. So I've had no mystical experiences, no encounters with ghosts or spirits or anything like that. And the argument for atheism is that if there are supreme beings, it's up to them to prove themselves to us, not the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know if you had heard the term before or discussed it on the show.
Sure. Actually used it last night.
Did you?
Oh.
Apatheist.
Great. The other thing that I wanted to say is that I believe I have undeniable evidence that Jesus didn't exist because he was a bad carpenter. No one has a shred of wood that was supposedly touched by the hands of Jesus. And if he could turn water into wine, why couldn't he turn pine into ebony? And no one seems to have collected a lovely dinette set with heavenly intarsia, pun intended, or anything yet. There's plenty of wooden objects that have survived from that era and thousands of years before that.
So I'm guessing that you're just joking.
No, I'm serious.
Okay, in that case, absence of evidence is only evidence of absence when you would actually expect there to be evidence. And the fact that you don't have a coffee table that was made by Jesus does not in any way confirm that Jesus didn't exist.
Oh, okay.
But if you did have a coffee table that was made by Jesus, that would be pretty good confirmation, and probably worth a good penny.
All right, that was all I had to say. I think your show's great, and I wish I were in Austin to help celebrate with you.
We wish you were in Austin, too. But South by Southwest is over, so we're sending everybody else home. Maybe next time. Thanks, Trevor.
You're welcome. Have a good day.
You too. All right, we've got Joan in, is it Friendship?
Friendship, Maine, yeah.
Yeah, how you doing?
Good. I'm a little scared because you guys look pretty pissed off with all the callers you've had.
No.
I
Matter of fact,
didn't understand.
I'll let David be nice.
I didn't understand the first thing about the first or second callers. I don't know. But anyways, originally I'd asked the guy, the guy who put me on the line, if you were going to the Reason Rally, and then I heard that you had mentioned that Mark Wagner is going.
Martin Wagner, yeah.
Yeah, so that was just an aside. But I also, because I'm going to go to the Reason Rally.
Good.
And I was just curious if you guys were heading down. But I just had more of an observation than anything else. I live, although Maine's not really a huge Christian state, where I live is pretty Christian. And I live in a peninsula on the Gulf of Maine. It's a pretty small town. There's only about 1,200 people here. and I'm also a registered nurse at the hospital. And
Awesome.
I work in I just moved to a new unit in the hospital, and it's a very small unit, and everybody is fairly Christian. I have an evangelical Christian there, and I have a Jehovah's Witness. And then I also own the only store in town in Friendship, Maine. It's a little grocery store. And so, I know everybody, and I'm hoping they don't listen to this show because they're going to know who I am. But
Well, no. You should be hoping that they all listen to this show.
well, some of them literally will never come in my store again if they knew, that I was even going to this rally.
Oh, wow. Well, in that case, I hope they don't know.
But I just got to make this observation, and I know you've probably heard it before, but the people that I work with in this new unit in the hospital, they are some of the meanest people I have ever met in my life. They are incredibly backstabbing. The other day I just closed a room that I was in and just stayed in there for like 3 hours just so I did not have to interact with anybody else.
Wow.
And then in the town I live in, there's a lot of great people here, but the county I live in is the #1 prescription drug abusing in the whole country. Knox County, Maine is the highest abusing. Wow. We have a huge rate of pregnancy out of wedlock, out of, not married. And I know, Matt, as you were a Christian, I've read that you going to school for seminary. I don't know how these people, how do they justify it? It's like they can do anything, but they can't have an abortion. That would be the absolute worst. But they can be mean, they can be spiteful, they can be take any drug, they can sleep with anybody they want to. But I just don't get it. I'm probably one of the nicest people in this unit, and I'm not saying I think I can say that safely without I'm not trying to say I'm a saint. I'm just saying I'm amazed. I'm just amazed at these Christians who are just mean, and I just don't get it.
Yeah, you're probably better than a saint. I think saints are generally overrated. But
yeah, I didn't mean it. I don't want to come off like that.
I'm being serious.
You know what I mean? I'm not trying to sound like that at all.
But no. I'm being serious. I think saints are overrated. I think you're probably better than a saint. I think everybody in this room is probably better than a saint.
Yeah.
But David wanted to address the meanness and hypocrisy.
Yeah, I think it's really easy to get away with things like that when you basically look at life as a practice run. When you think that this is just a very 60, 70, 80, 90 year stint amongst billions of years in eternity, this isn't really that big of a deal to a lot of theists, and I think that's part of the problem. And whenever you come across an atheist, and we've got the understanding that this is all we have, and mankind is everything to one another. This is all we have is to be here for each other. I think that we take it a lot more seriously to help one another and be respectful to one another.
I think there's a bit more as well. I don't know, were you going to?
No, go ahead.
I think part of this is that you've got different types of Christianity, and when you've got Catholicism, which will let you go and apologize for damn near anything to somebody who wasn't harmed by what you did, and then you've got this idea that, hey, I'm not perfect, I'm just forgiven, which is prevalent in Protestant churches especially. And what it does is it breeds a culture where it's okay to not take personal responsibility for your actions. You can apologize to God for back-talking Betty Sue down the block, or you can go out and do all the things that you personally feel are wrong. This is most definitely wrong for me to go out and get drunk and have affairs and things like that. But I can apologize to God, and it wipes the slate clean. It's a perversion of morality. The religions tend to poison people's moral compasses, and while emboldening them to think that they actually have a better moral compass. It's one of the most perverse things I've ever seen, because what ends up happening is you either get the holier-than-thou people who are holy crap self-righteous while being terrible, despicable people with regard to interacting with other people, or you end up with people who are just like everybody else but constantly plagued with guilt over the normal things, like, oh, I don't know, having a sexual attraction to somebody of the same sex. And you have this third collection that alternates between guilt and thinking they're superior while running around doing whatever the hell they want, and they only have to apologize to this God guy rather than the people they've wronged. It kills personal responsibility. It doesn't seem to kill personal pride and accomplishment. I don't know that we can kill that off at all. But I think it's, we talk about, there are families that, raise their kids in a nice biblical home and hand them the quote-unquote good book. Nothing good about it. And they're breeding another generation of people who will, at a minimum, be duplicitous. At a minimum, be, happy and generous and other things in this area, and then sneaking off to do things elsewhere, knowing that they can just apologize, but not to the people that they've actually wronged. It's a terrible thing.
Right, and the comment you mentioned about, if people found out you were going to the rally or found out you were atheist, that they wouldn't even come into your store. I think that's a lot of the reason we do what we do.
Yeah.
It's really easy, to be a bully to a person when you think they're one in a group of a million. But when you start to realize there are more and more atheists out there and we're going to speak up, I think that should slow things down. As far as you talking about handing them the good book, that's been a big problem. And as a matter of fact, on Dogma Debate a couple of episodes ago, I did atheist Bible study. We went through and pulled out all the things your pastor doesn't want you to know about the Bible. And so you may want to go listen to that. And
yeah, I love when atheists teach the Bible. I've offered to do it many times.
It's fun.
Yeah. So I guess they don't think. I just didn't know how they got around that they weren't going to hell too. Because
right,
they're forgiven.
Maybe not to be mean. Maybe I don't know the Bible as well as you guys do at all. I've tried to read as much as I can. I was a Catholic, and Catholics are encouraged not to read the Bible, so I don't really know much about it. But I tried to. But I just figured premarital sex would be you're going to hell, and but maybe not. Maybe I guess.
Well, not believing is way worse than all that stuff.
And it's one thing that Catholics are encouraged not to read the Bible, but it's still better than Protestants who are encouraged to not read anything else.
Yeah, that's true.
Everything you need to know is right in there.
Yep.
I'm sure there's financial planning.
I love you guys. I love your show, and I so appreciate what you do. And I'll just keep watching.
Thanks, Joan.
Thanks.
And we'll hope your neighbors aren't watching. Have a great time at the rally, and maybe call back and
I can't
let
wait.
us know
If
how
you're
it
ever
went.
in Friendship, Maine, come into the only store in town. We have the best sandwiches around.
Absolutely.
Okay?
All right, thanks, Joan.
All right, bye, guys.
Bye. All right, we've got Danny in Chicago. How are you?
Hello?
Hey, is this Danny?
Yeah.
You're on the air.
Hi. I wanted to ask if there were any books or sites that you had gone to that actually debunked anything in the Hindu religion, because it seems like there's no sites on that, even though it's 30% of the world's religion, but it a lot of people worship it, and I haven't seen anything on that.
Yeah, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. Are you familiar with any?
Not.
It's one of those things where
Hindus aren't usually trying to take our rights away from us. So
yeah,
we usually
it's
focus on
there's not a lot of anti-Judaism sites either, and it's because Jews don't tend to proselytize, and they're kind of not really all that worried about what non-Jews are doing. The handful of Hindus that I've met and interacted with, they're kind of similar. I mean, I haven't had any advocates of Hinduism come knocking on my door to invite me to anything, and they have some really, because it's this mishmash that's become enculturated and religion. There's things about it I actually find intriguing. I mean, the Hindus were closer to the actual age of the universe in their system than anybody else got. They were at 13 billion years or whatever, and it's 13.7. And I like to use that when Christians talk about how accurate the Bible is on science. And I'm like, well, the Hindus got it much closer on the age of the universe. So yeah, I don't know any sites off the top of my head. You may send an email, and also, here's something. Russell and I started a counter-apologetics wiki called Iron Chariots, and if you go to ironchariots.org, there's a lot of good information up there. And if you don't find any information, and I'm betting that you probably won't, on the specifics of Hindu beliefs,
there isn't much.
you can stop by the forum over there and talk to some other people, and if it's missing, we can add articles. That's what the wiki's for. So maybe we can turn a portion of Iron Chariots into the world's #1 resource on countering Hinduism. But I haven't really spent much time worrying about Hindus taking away my rights.
Yeah, there was just like one more thing. Do you think it would be like really responsible for an atheist, like any atheist, to not actually like read any of like the Bible or any other like religious ideas and then call themselves an atheist without really knowing like what they're disagreeing with? Would you think that's responsible in any way? Because it just seems to me that if you can't actually argue your case in any way, then you really don't have much more footing than the people that you're trying to argue with.
I don't think there's any need for somebody to read the holy books of the world in order to not accept them. I actually encourage people to do so. I agree that you can much better argue your position if you actually know what the other person's position is. But the fact that you might not have read the Bible doesn't make your atheist position any less sound.
No, but I think a lot of times what frustrates me is when people say, well, I was an atheist and now I'm a Christian. And I'm just telling, no, you were lazy. And then, you became converted to Christianity. I don't think you knew really enough to say that.
You were an atheist and then you became a Christian.
It's just one of
And what I want to know is why. Because were you actually a skeptic? I mean, were you somebody who applied reason? Did you wait for good evidence? Did you have a good reason for converting? Because it's nothing to say, I used to be an atheist and now I'm a Christian. I mean, that means absolutely nothing until you get to the why. It's why when we look at people like Kirk Cameron, who was a devout atheist.
Yeah, I love that term.
Boy, the second he said that, I knew he was full of it. But and Lee Strobel, who claimed to be a skeptic, but seems to only interview people who agree with his Christian position now. And it doesn't matter. Not everybody is a good skeptical thinker. Not everybody's been given the tools to think critically. But when somebody says, yeah, I used to be an atheist and now I'm a Christian, okay, why? Maybe I'm missing something. Can you, give me the information? And if after, or worse is when they say they were actually a skeptic and now they're a Christian, or they're currently a skeptic
like
and
they
a Christian.
can't be compatible.
Yeah, I have a big go-round with people who say they're currently a skeptic and a Christian, but that's a topic for another show.
Okay, well, thanks. But one thing for the first guy who called, I just hope it's just a simulation. I hope it's not running on Windows XP. Okay,
and
thanks.
if I hope if it's a simulation that somebody deletes his telephone. Anyway, thanks. All right, we've got Jonathan in Auburn. How are you? Oh, and that's Auburn, Washington, I believe.
Hi, how you guys doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm normal.
I hope you won't be offended if I end up disagreeing.
Yeah.
I just want to talk to you guys about the reason why I believe in reincarnation.
Mm-hmm.
So after I've recognized that there's a probability in the universe. I've recognized that for a very long time. And just a few months ago, I took a literal interpretation of probability and put it on to other stuff. For example, so I'm alive right now, and that's an occurrence.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that since this occurrence of me being alive has happened, it's probably going to happen again, or already has happened before.
Why?
Well, I said an occurrence that happens once is bound to happen again after time.
That would be recurrence.
Why?
What evidence supports that it's bound to happen again? Why do you think that?
Well, I just think of it like when you flip a coin, you're bound to get a certain pattern of heads and tails over and over again.
Sure. So when that coin comes up heads and then you flip it again and it comes up heads, that's a separate occurrence. It's not the same thing. I've got a coin. I can flip it twice right now, but it's two separate occurrences, whether it comes up heads both times or not. Heads. Oops. I hope this isn't the double-headed coin, because heads. I just did it. Two times it came head. Was that the same occurrence? No, it wasn't the same occurrence. It was, for the most part, the same atoms. I might have knocked a couple loose. But for the most part, this was the same coin, but it was two different points in time. And so you don't get to count the first instance of heads and the second instance of heads as the same, because there are things around here that changed, like the air. People were looking different directions. I was thinking different things. You were waiting for a second coin toss. Everything about the second one is necessarily different from the first one. So it's dishonest to call them two identical events. You have to look at it at the right layer or the right level of magnification. I mean, it's fine to say, hey, I flipped a coin and it came up heads 2 times in a row. By the way, do I get points for predicting that the first 2 flips out of my pocket were going to be heads? Because where's James Randi when you need him? But they're not the same occurrence. So the fact that you can talk about the probability of a fair coin being flipped at going to be, well, it's not exactly 50-50 heads or tails, but you can calculate that probability, but that's a probability of different events producing the same result at this particular layer of magnification. It's not the same event over and over again.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right.
So do you still think that it's likely you lived before and will live again?
No. Like you said, it'll be a little different, actually.
Yeah. I mean, hell, that was the easiest flip on reincarnation
Good job.
I've ever had.
I got to tell you. Good job. Matt, good job.
6 to 1 and pick 'em. And thanks for following, the evidence to the conclusion. And keep thinking about things, and if you come up with better evidence or better reasons and questions, just keep asking. That was awesome. Thanks, Jonathan.
Hey, thanks for helping out.
Sure. Have a good day.
Bye.
So there's like 13 minutes or so left in the show, and since I continually forget to remind people, we are in fact going to dinner at El Arroyo afterwards. I wanted to ask, I forgot to ask you earlier, if you had anything special coming up on Dogma Debate, any guests that you wanted to talk about? Or maybe you don't, I don't know.
Not coming up, but the last couple of episodes I did, like I said, we did the atheist Bible study, and before that I actually interviewed Sam Phelps from Westboro Baptist Church. And that was a really good one. Before that, we had a preacher live in studio, and we beat that guy up. I felt so bad for him. So go listen to that.
I will give it a listen, and other people can too. You can go look for Dogma Debate online. Sure, we'll go to Gavin in Annapolis. How are you?
Hey, what's up, Matt?
Oh, not much. I'm doing the show.
Dave, is it?
Yeah.
David Smalley, yes.
Yeah, pardon my ignorance about the show and everything. I just kind of started finding clips on YouTube and such, and I watched you a lot. I think you're a great public speaker, and you explain things really well. But what I wanted to ask you, like most of all, is why do you do it?
Sure. There's a lot of reasons why. I can tell you why the atheist community of Austin started the show, but I'd just rather give you my reasons for doing it. I actually care both about the subjects we're talking about and what the truth may be, but also I care what people believe. I'd rather live in a world where most people, or all people actually, believe things for good reasons, and that their beliefs are as in line with reality as possible. And I find that I'm not actually living in that reality, so I'm going to do something to try and change that.
Oh, right on. I mean, it sounds great. So then you are okay. So you are okay with, like, if somebody believes in God or different religions or whatever it may be for good reason, then you're all for it?
Yeah, I just haven't met anybody who had a good reason.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's what I wanted to ask you next is, like, I'm not trying to bait you or anything like, I don't know, Mr. Sims guy or whatever he was doing, but do you ever feel there's going to come a day where, like, somebody's going to call you up and be like, dude, Y plus X equals God, boom.
That happens.
I've had that call.
Yeah, that happens quite a bit, actually.
As a matter of fact, last week.
I'm a Christian, and I've never seen it happen. I'm like, I just feel like It's never. I feel like science, when it comes to science and logic and all that stuff, and then the spirituality and the faith in God and stuff, I just feel like it's never gonna meet up. It's just never gonna happen. And God forbid, man, I don't care if you're an atheist and you bash God every day. I want it to the bottom of my soul, sincerely. When you die, I want you to be right there with me. I want all these people. I really do. I'm not trying to sound like corny about it or anything, but
no. Okay. Just in case you're not aware, I was a fundamentalist Christian for more than 25 years and was going to be a minister. I understand what you're saying.
I want it for everybody, and I think these people that call in, like this Kirk Cameron and all these other people, for them to have the audacity to walk up in somebody's face and tell them you're going to hell, like I saw a clip from one of your hosts, and he goes, "Do you really want that for me? Is that honestly what you want?" And it's disgusting. If you call yourself a Christian and you really want somebody to burn and suffer like that, you should be ashamed of yourself.
I agree, but on the other hand, if you, when I was a Christian at least, my telling somebody that they were bound for hell wasn't a threat and it wasn't anything I desired. It was the first step towards correcting that problem. It was, hey, you know, this is, I believe that you're bound for hell, and I believe that, you know, we may be able to help you fix that.
Yeah, I get it. They're so mean about it, man. Like, to be Christians now, they really disgust me. I was raised in a home where my parents always told me, like, you don't judge anybody until you get to know them, you know? Like, I could sit there and be honest and say, like, if you're ever through Indiana, come by my place. I don't want to attack what you believe. I got friends that are atheists. We can have beers. I'll try to make you laugh.
Yeah.
I'll beat you. I don't get it. I just don't understand how. So back to what you said, like, that why you do it. All right, I get it. I understand. I just feel like you're so good at what you do in debating and explaining things and your knowledge on subjects. I just feel like it's just a dead conversation, and I'm not trying to insult, like I said, what you do. I just feel like you could push that energy in another direction and do something really great. Like,
I think I am doing
what
something.
What you're doing now isn't great, you know. You give atheists a home and to, you know, converse amongst each other. And
Here's the thing, and I don't mean to, I won't drag you anywhere that you're not comfortable going, because I know you didn't come in to necessarily defend your beliefs. But you mentioned before you're a Christian.
Yes, sir.
Would you mind saying why?
I was raised in it, and I feel like, man, I want to see my friends again.
Okay.
When I die, I want to see my relatives.
But
I want to believe in it wholeheartedly.
Sure.
I feel like the emotion of love is something that transcends humanity.
Okay.
Things like that.
So, would you agree that wanting something to be true has no impact on whether it's actually true?
Yes, I do agree with you. I can't give you. I can't say, Matt, I found this in the backyard, and I'm like, boom, God, yeah, that's it. It's been a struggle. I'm 29 years old, man, and people think that when you become a Christian, like some of these born-again Christians, when they find out later in life, they act like they flip a switch and like, boom, Phil, everything's good.
So,
I'm just going to put on the smile.
so let me ask you. I mean, you seem to be a great guy. I'm sure we could hang out. I don't know what all your specific positions are on any number of things, but what is your Christianity? How does your Christianity impact your daily life and your decision making? I mean, for example, are you wow, I don't want to get into necessarily all your political positions, but to what extent do you think Christianity impacts your decision-making ability, like who you vote for and things like that?
I try never to judge anybody without truly getting to know them. But at the same time, I'm a hypocrite and I contradict myself all the time, because I'll sit there and I have predetermined notions about people based on race, beliefs, and other things, but I try not to, because I know it's not the right thing to do, because I really don't know them as a person. So I try to, like my parents told me, you know, Jesus taught unconditional love. If that guy, even if that guy spits on you and he takes your money and he steals from you, guess what? You're still supposed to love him.
Yeah,
and I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm all for that.
I think your parents might have taught you wrong, because I don't recall Jesus teaching unconditional love.
No, he didn't.
See, that's why. Well, there again, I'm ignorant to the actual.
And just to point out, John 7:24 actually tells you to pass judgment on other people. So the people that are doing that are Christians are actually being biblically accurate.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm grateful to all of the liberal moderate Christians who aren't going to follow the Bible and who are going to give people a fair shake. And I mean, from my perspective, in just the couple of minutes that we've been talking to you, you seem to be just about like anybody else, and you're non-judgmental, and you're not looking for conflict, and you just have your beliefs, perhaps because they make you feel good, I guess is about the best you can come up with. The only big difference right now between the two of us is that I'm not willing to believe something just because it might make me feel good. As a matter of fact, the things that people believe because it makes them feel good, it doesn't make me feel good at all. I actually care whether or not my beliefs are true and how closely they map to reality, because I think it's important. I think if there was a God and there was this threat of hell, that would be a really important thing that we might ought to spend some time figuring out, and not just go on the, it makes me feel better. Because how do you know, for example, that you're not avoiding the wrong hell? I mean,
I agree with you completely. Like, yeah, how do you know? Because when you're raised in something, like people are like, how can these Muslims blow themselves up? And I'm like, dude, but you don't get it. I'm like, what if from the very day you were born, this was indoctrinated in you? This is what you're about. You're raised in. It's grinded in your very core. You're going to tell me that you're just going to, oh yeah, you know what? They were wrong. I mean, come on.
Well, if that's where the evidence points, why wouldn't anybody make that decision? If they actually examined their beliefs and found that they weren't supported by evidence, why wouldn't somebody say, oh, I can't believe that anymore? I mean, it's not even a choice. Once I got to the point where I realized that the evidence did not support what I believed, I simply couldn't believe it anymore, no matter how hard I tried.
Not with integrity.
Yeah, I mean, it's just dishonest.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I understand. I understand what you say, and I know. I mean, because we could get into like the different reasons, like because I do have a lot of them. Well, I honestly do. I'm not supporting myself well. To be honest, I'm a little nervous.
Call back some other time, because we've only got a couple minutes left on the show anyway. So call back some other time if you want to talk about it.
All right, definitely. Hey, thanks for the opportunity, and thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I wish you guys the best, man.
Thanks. You too.
Later.
Gavin will be an atheist in 12 months.
Well,
he's going to go read it. He's going to go read it at some point.
He's got to care first. That's the biggest thing. You have to actually care. You can't just be, I'm comfortable with what I believe, even if I don't. I know I don't have any good reason for it, but I'm comfortable with what I believe, and I don't really care if I have a good reason. There's a guy who's called in a couple times who won't be getting back on, for all of those of you who freaked out over letting him talk for a long time the other day, who's basically called in twice to say, hey, look, I believe this because it makes me feel good. What's wrong with that? And I've tried to point it out, and we got
because you vote.
in part.
And that scares us.
So there's actually less than a minute left. Hey, Mike. Mike from Woodbridge, you there? Whoops. Wow. Line 3's broken. So, Mike, hang on. We'll see if we can figure out what's going on with the phone and maybe take you after the call. Mike, you there?
Hello?
Yeah, we're out of time. If you hang on, I'll talk to you right after the show's over. I'm going to put you on hold. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Thanks, David, so much for coming down.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for having me.
Anytime that we have room. Thanks, everybody, for showing up. We'll be back live next week with another show. And until then, I don't know, think about what you believe.